Hey guys, welcome to NIJ Changemakers. This is Priyanka and I am here with the co-founder and head of growth for CoHo, Devashish Sharma. Devashish, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Priyanka.
So Devashish, the first question that I have for you is tell me a little bit of what CoHo is about. I wish I just recently moved here and I wish I had known about it because it just seems so easy. So let our audience know what CoHo is about.
Sure. CoHo is a co-living company, which basically means that we provide housing in big cities for young people, whether it's students or young professionals. The whole idea is that when they move to a new city, it becomes really easy for them to get settled down, whether it's finding a clean, comfortable place, whether it's getting the right amenities, or whether it's finding the right community to be a part of. Those are the 3 C's that we go with.
3 C's are community,
comfort, community, and convenience.
Great.
Right. So the whole premise is that now that India is urbanizing, a lot of young people are flocking to the cities, majorly metros, to build their careers or to focus on their education. How can we make it super simple for them to make this transition from a smaller town to a bigger city? That's where CoHo comes in. And housing being a core need, this is where we find our sweet spot, where if we can provide a good environment for them to be a part of, we can really impact their lives for the long run.
So now you said that you were in multiple cities, correct?
Right.
And you just finished your 3rd year anniversary. So congratulations for that.
Thank you.
So which cities are you in and how do you plan to expand now?
Right now we're in Delhi, Gurgaon and Noida.
Okay.
We're launching Bangalore next month, and Mumbai and Pune are the 2 next cities after that.
And you have close to, I think you're serving 3,000 customers
Right.
in over 50 properties now,
Right,
all
right,
over.
right.
And this is all over Delhi, all over in all the areas.
Gurgaon and Noida.
Is there any strategy that you use to locate your properties or place your buildings?
Right. I mean, it all goes back to our target audience. So our target audience is millennials, 18 to 35. Again, people who are looking to build their careers or to focus on education. Now, these people, if you look at their lifestyle, they want to be in the heart of the city.
Right.
And they want to be close to their work or close to their school, right? So most of our properties are based around this one single philosophy, so that it becomes a no-brainer for them to choose us, not only because of the location, but also the amenities that we provide.
Okay.
Right. So if we go ahead into a new city, we look at these economic zones, or we look at these student hubs, and that's where we cherry pick our properties and go ahead with it.
So an interesting thing that you mentioned is that people are flocking to cities, and this is definitely the trend. Now India's population is 62, over 60%, I can say, I think it's 62. They are under the age of 35, right? So you have a big sort of brain gain into a lot of the major cities because people want to be, as you said, by the metros, right?
Right.
So how does was this sort of the vision that you guys saw with CoHo, or was this something that you thought of? Definitely this trend is here to stay.
I think so. Before I answer that, let me just get into the whole trend. How long has it been already?
Sure.
I think this whole economic migration phenomena has been there for ages. It's just that now with the recent, with the current government opening FDIs and the whole startup revolution that was brought in, and the foreign entities coming into India, this has acted as a catalyst to make it even faster.
Right.
So if you look at the life cycle, people used to move cities every 4 to 5 years before, like in early 2000s. Now it is less than 2 years, right? The dynamics are such that earlier it used to be families or people who have, in their late 20s. Now it's even younger. And the student migration was always there. There was always student hubs, like people go to Kota to prepare for IIT JEE, people go to Varanasi for, BHU and other things. It's just that now things are happening much faster. Right, so the opportunity we saw at CoHo is that, okay, there's sheer number of people, like I think 300 million plus under the age of 18. They all would be moving in the next 10 to 15 years,
right.
Either for upping their skills at universities or to join the workforce, right? And again, as I said, it's all concentrated in the metros, mostly in the metros, right? The pace at which it happens, the infrastructure doesn't allow as yet to meet the demand. And that's where CoHo saw an opportunity that if we standardize a lot of elements around settling down in a new city, starting from housing, that's where a business could be built. A large, massive opportunity lies, right? So just the sheer market size, if I have to throw numbers, there are 34 million students who migrate. There are about 25 million young professionals who migrate, right? We're talking about 60 million people migrating every year, right? And they spend around 10,000 rupees a month on their on average, right? So we're talking about a market size which is $50 billion, right? Annually.
So are you getting demands for like people wanting to stay in CoHo rooms and you call them rooms, right, or units?
We call them CoHo spaces.
CoHo spaces. Okay, so in terms of CoHo spaces, are you getting, you can only sort of build up one building at a time, right, at this point. Right. And at the base of it, you can build up multiple buildings, but it still takes time because as you said that you were the operators, you're not like the landlord of this building, right? So you work with the landlords in order to build this infrastructure.
We work with the landlords, we work with the builders, and we come in as partners to them. And our whole value prop is that we are completely asset light. We are operations light as well. Mm-hmm. So scaling up is built into the model in the sense that we do not have to wait not more than a month to get a property of this size, which is 200 people living in this building.
You don't have to wait more than a month.
More than a month to get it live, up and running.
You mentioned reforms that the government has introduced.
Right.
FDI is coming in, right? Let's talk a little bit about GST that has just been implemented.
Right.
How does this help you?
I think GST definitely helps us because now that we are launching a new city in a different region altogether, which is say not Delhi NCR but say Karnataka, and we plan to go to Bombay, we plan to go to Mumbai, completely different states.
Right.
If we talk say before pre-GST era, we had to there would be operational headache on accountancy. Like how do we go around taxes, how do we plan our pricing over there, and what kind of compliances do we have to cater to. Now with GST, I think there's some peace of mind to our finance team where they don't have to redo a lot of things. Things are already in place and we can almost launch without any hassles on the accounting side, right?
And have you seen this happen? Because now GST, there's a lot of the negative articles around GST also talk about that it's not been implemented yet, right? It's not been properly implemented. But have you seen a clear change since it has come into...
On the GST side?
Yes.
As far as our category of services go, I think it was very clear cut. So we personally did not face any issues in terms of confusion around where do we fit into the brackets.
And you could see the change right away, that it was just easier after it was...
It was definitely easier. And along with it, I would also say that, the whole move to make India cashless, the demonetization, famous demonetization thing in 2016, even though it led to a few hiccups initially for our business.
What were some of those hiccups?
The hiccups was that, if we talk about like the traditional fundamentals of our business, it's rental properties, right? So traditionally people were comfortable paying rent in cash. Right. Since we also cater to students, a lot of the payments were coming from parents and parents would force us to take cash. As a business, we would have to allow that because we don't want to say no to a revenue source. However, with that push from the government, it enabled even like people who were late majority in adopting technology to pay online. Now, as a business, we benefited a lot because suddenly when all the payments were digital, reconciliation, figuring out their sources, figuring out how to tax them, became super simple for us, almost automated, right? Because everything was taken care of by the software programs we wrote. So I think demonetization for our business was a blessing in disguise. After the few hiccups, we really liked it, and I think
not in disguise, right? I mean, it was just made life easier.
I mean, the first thing was, oh God, like what's happening? Like what will we do? Like we hope we don't lose out on customers. Right. But I think if I talk 2 years, like it's almost been 2 years now. What we see right now is a much positive impact on the business than a negative one.
So with that being said, before the rental scene in India was not that way, right? Because it was completely unorganized. In the sense, unorganized basically means that a landlord can charge whatever he or she wants, and often they would, as you said, ask in cash in back in the day, I guess you can say. Yeah. So how has this kind of affected CoHo? The switch from just being a little bit more organized, because now there is some sense of transparency, now there is some sense of regulation, and it may not be 100%, but as you said, for you in your specific industry, you've definitely seen the change almost overnight.
So I think the rental market for individuals and young professionals was always a very non-transparent and for the lack of better word, like highly unorganized. That's where the PG segment lies in India, right? And if you think of a PG, even the brand for that matter, it's a brandless brand. Like nobody knows what a PG should actually be, right? And but at the same time, it became almost like an irreplaceable necessity because there was no alternatives to that.
Right.
So CoHo and players like CoHo brought in that standardization. empowered the consumer at the end of the day to have some sort of an expectation when it came to living standards in a new city. So coming back to the point, I think the whole cash to digital payments definitely helped us, because not only it was good for the business, I personally feel somewhere behind the scenes it also helped the consumers to make timely payments, right? And to be more professional about expecting services and paying for those services, right? And so if I have to compare the whole unorganized market to the organized one, I don't see unorganized market going anywhere because it's too big to be wiped out in a flash. But over a period of time, we would see people moving towards the organized players like us, not only in big cities but also in smaller cities.
So one of the things about the Indian market that's unique to the Indian market, I guess, is that in the past it was very unorganized, right? This basically means that an individual who is a landlord can charge whatever they want, and they would normally ask for a cash payment, right? So a concept like a PG existed and nothing else existed. Otherwise, you just kind of had to go and find it yourself.
True.
So now with the introduction of CoHo, do you see the trend of unorganization sort of going towards more organization, especially with reforms that are emphasizing, government reforms, I should say, that are emphasizing regulation and transparency?
If you look at on a macro trend in India, everything lies on a trust deficit level. Most of the industries are unorganized, right? So housing or rental accommodations is one of them. And what the opportunity for businesses is to create a brand, and brands are built on trust. And the way we define trust in the rental segment is making sure that people are able to predict and expect exactly what is shown to them, right? So if I now come back to the question, where do I see people going from unorganized to organized sectors, the consumer demands will definitely make that shift happen, right? Because consumers at the end of the day are the people who decide how the market should behave. And now that players like us are coming into the picture, they are tasting standardization for the first time.
Do you think that these reforms add to a more consumer-centric market in terms of realty and rental properties?
Yeah, I mean, so one part is what I just discussed, right? The other part which I can think of is around payments.
Right, because if I was making a cash payment, or sorry, not a cash payment, but a card payment online, I'd want to know exactly what was being, like a breakdown of what was being charged to me.
So I mean, think like consumer. Before this, like very few options were there to pay digitally. Now everybody was accepting cash, right? Now that there is an alternative which is much better, much more smarter, allows people to track and keep a record on whatever payments have been made to which entity. Obviously, the better option is digital payments, and that's where the consumer demands will go. And if not today, sometime in the future, the consumer at the end of the day will obviously flock towards the more optimized and more efficient mechanism to pay, which is digital payments, right? Because not only it allows for quick and instant payments, but also allows for tracking where the payments were made. So tomorrow, if there's any dispute between the landlord and the tenant, there is a record held by the bank or whatever the financial institution is. And the landlord could be held accountable for not providing adequate services, right? And that's where the reforms around legislation, around the acts that you mentioned on RERA and other acts of so kind would also come in handy, because it not only empowers the consumers, but because of that, the whole industry strengthens, right? Because any industry becomes a long-lasting industry and sustainable industry only when there is trust between buyers and sellers.
And CoHo would then become more, I would say, not even trustworthy, but just more reputable, because you're the operator.
Right.
You work with the landlord, but with an act like RERA, there's just more transparency and regulation towards it, right?
Right. Being transparent to our users, to our potential customers, not only allows us to educate them on these reforms, but at the same time uniquely position us in a very differentiated way from the unorganized players, right? And bringing this transparency attracts more customers than just being loud about our services. Right. Because at the end of the day, the market lacks trust, and whatever we could do to establish that will help businesses like us and ourselves included.
So the last segment that we have is more of a fun segment, because I think all the people that watch our channel kind of want to get to know you as an entrepreneur, and since you're such a successful one, they want to know more about your personal side.
Sure.
So this is going to be rapid fire. I'm going to say a word or phrase and you have to answer with the first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
Good? Ready? All right. Let's start with work-life balance.
I think it fluctuates. It's a sine curve. Sometimes you are on the high side, sometimes you're on the low side. But over a period of time, it becomes averaged out.
It's a sine curve.
It's a sine
That's the first time I've heard someone describe their work-life balance to a sine curve. Yeah.
That's something I just realized when I'm a student as well.
Great, great. The thing that annoys you the most?
Professionally, I think it's more to do with what's it called? Like unprofessional behavior. I'm a big fan of following up whatever you promise, at least with the effort, if not with the result.
What about now CoHo is something where you have to deal with residents. It doesn't stop on a Friday at 5 p.m., weekends as well, right? Because people are still living in these units and spaces. How do you deal with dating and relationships as an entrepreneur? Because you probably don't have time. You couldn't see it turn that way, right?
It's something you get used to over time, and you always find friends and partners and even your family get used to the fact that, okay, this person has this priority in life, and if we want to be part of that, we have to adjust to that particular lifestyle, right? So it's not just with me. I think more than me, most of my teammates suffer it even further. Like, I'm not married, but like I have two co-founders who are married, and I salute them. How do they handle not just, I think their personal life is a bit more complicated than mine. So I just feel
it's on camera, so they'll definitely see it, right?
I mean, I come from an outsider perspective, and I just feel like they do a much better job in handling that balance than me personally.
Okay, fair enough. How about, how do you, going off the fact that you're working all the time and you do have some down days, but by and large, it's like a sine curve, as you said. How do you wind down?
So I think it's just sorry, it amused me a bit because I was thinking about it the other day, that when do I really get relaxed? And surprisingly, I realized it's during my drive back from office to home. It's about 45 minutes, and it's so slow because of the traffic that I really get relaxed, right?
Oh, cool.
I listen to a lot of good music,
okay.
And it's not at all hectic. Even
You're the one driving?
I'm the one driving, yes.
Isn't that stressful? I find it very stressful when I'm driving over here.
I agree, but like I think so keeping things in perspective, other things in life, I just felt like this was probably a bit more like the drive back was definitely relaxing over time.
So you listen to good music, you just chill. There's traffic all over anyways, so you're not moving that quickly.
Exactly, yeah. So that's like a slow pace time that I have, and besides that, I'm over exaggerating that I work all the time. I like to say that, but definitely I have time for Netflix. I do take vacations and all that stuff, and wherever possible, we have this window that we always, unplug ourselves. And I also keep looking for those opportunities whenever I can.
And then the last question I have for you is mainly for our audience. What advice? Now you're a very young, successful entrepreneur.
I like to believe I'm still on, cracked at success, but I'm still nascent. But thanks for the.
So you're a very young, successful, nascent entrepreneur.
Sure.
What advice do you have for all the people who are watching that want to be entrepreneurs, want to be change makers, want to be leaders?
I think, if I really think about it, I can only share what has worked for me and what I feel that, I would be using these particular check marks in my career forward. First thing is to be honest with yourself. You can obviously, the thing is to fake it till you make it, but you have to learn yourself first and understand where you really are. Second is create a network of people that you could...
What do you mean by you have to understand where you really are?
For example, my first learning is that I'm not successful, right? so that's where I know that I'm really not a successful entrepreneur yet, right?
Okay.
And so the definition of success might be different for different people.
What is it to you?
Creating a great business, massive business. My favorite business is Amazon.
Okay.
So something of that scale.
Okay.
And at the same time, create value for the end consumer, not just for the shareholders.
So then going back to what you said, when you say be honest with yourself, what were some of the questions you asked yourself?
So I studied engineering, and I always thought I was good at engineering until the time I started working, and that's when I realized I'm not the best engineer, right? Okay. But I was tagged as an engineer. Right. So I have to be first thing that I realized is that, okay, even though I'm skilled as an engineer, I don't think like an engineer, right? And that's a revelation that you only get after a period of time. So it's not something you can, just think about yourself. You have to do certain things, and then you realize, okay, this is not for me, or this is for me, right?
Okay.
But at the same time, I do play the engineer card, right? Because I'm skilled like that, so it gets to my it gets on my positive side, if anything else, right?
Okay.
But
then number two?
Number two would be create a base of friends, of mentors, or people you could reach out to whenever you need help or advice, and at the same time be a contributive member of that community. And this whole network base takes time to build, so be patient with it, but be very selective about who do you bring into that circle. Because over a period of time, at least in my personal opinion, whenever I face any crisis, and crises are bound to happen, right? There are ups and downs in startups all the time. Whenever you are at a down, you always have somebody to reach out to for any specific thing. And whenever you're at a high, you always have these people to celebrate with.
Great.
Right? So these are two fundamental things that I feel I always I benefit the most from. So I always tell other people to follow the same path.
How do people find you in case they want a CoHo space?
Oh, it's easy. Just go to CoHo.in and you can browse all the properties. We have, as I said, like 52 locations across 3 cities, and do check us out on Facebook as well. There are more photos there. So it's facebook.com/CoHoStays, CoHoStayz.
And that wraps up our episode of NIJ Changemakers. Thank you so much. Until next time, this is Priyanka Deo.